Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Kris. This is episode 10 of Caesar. This is the battle of... Oh, I must have just had my sound cut out, so I totally nailed it too. Oh well, I'm going to break this down into two 14-minute videos just because anything over 15 minutes I would like to break down, but I'm not going to. I've been talking a lot video.
Gaius Julius Caesar and Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus were among the most successful generals in Roman history, who almost doubled the size of the Republic during their career. However, both of them were about to meet the toughest challenge of their lives. The Great Roman Civil War was reaching its peak, and the two leaders would fight against each other for the first time at Dyrrhachium. In our videos, we often explore how information was crucial, and this is true in the modern era as it was true back in the day. The sponsor of today's video is Backblaze, and they want to give you peace of mind knowing that your files are... So far, Caesar himself had been largely successful in the Civil War. His campaign in Spain had secured the West, as well as neutralizing some of Pompey's best legions, and he had been recruiting in Gaul and Italy, adding at least another 6 legions. However, his subordinates had not been as effective. Curio had lost 2 legions in North Africa, and his inability to take the province meant that supplies of grain in Rome would still be stretched. Around the same time, Gaius Antonius, the brother of Mark Antony, had lost 1.5 legions in Illyria to defection. To make matters worse, the veterans of the Gallic Wars, the 9th Legion in North Italy, had mutinied. Consular elections were due in Rome, and with both the consuls having fled with Pompey, there was no one to oversee them, threatening the legitimacy of Caesar's cause. His first priority was the 9th Legion, as many of his veteran legions were in a similar position. Rushing to their camp, Caesar made an impassioned speech, pointing out that as a general renowned for his quick action, he could not be blamed for prolonging the war. He then chastised the men, saying that he had brought them fame and fortune, and they now repaid him by mutineering. The only suitable punishment for the legion would be decimation. The legion begged Caesar...
That kind of sounds like something that Alexander the Great would have said, you know, I've given you so much. But he wouldn't have turned it towards and this is how you repay me. He would have just made them feel bad and made them continue to fight for him. But, you know, different people.
To reconsider. Magnanimous as ever, Caesar only executed 12 of the ringleaders, bringing the legion back into the fold.
Only 12.
Caesar needed to maintain an air of legitimacy, but with no consuls in Rome, the elections could not be held. Lepidus, a praetor and close ally of Caesar, suggested Caesar be named dictator so that he could preside over the election. Elections happened, and Caesar was appointed consul alongside another ally, Publius Servilius. With consular power, Caesar no longer needed the position of dictator, and resigned after just 11 days. With these issues now handled, Caesar gathered his force at Brundisium to finally confront Pompey. The latter was gathering a huge force from all corners of the Roman world in Thessalonica. In total, Pompey had around 60,000 men, 9 full legions, approximately 4,000 archers and slingers, 7,000 cavalry, plus some auxiliaries. There were a further 2 legions en route from Syria under the command of Metellus Scipio. Pompey had spent time drilling and equipping his men. However, only 4 of his legions were veterans. Cicero, who was with Pompey, described the bulk of the force as raw recruits. Mixed cultures and languages made organization difficult. Trusting in numbers though, Pompey marched to the west of Greece, preparing to create a defensive line down the coast. Caesar, in Brundisium, had gathered his 10 veteran legions, all under strength due to years of campaigning, and 2 newly recruited ones. However, he only had enough ships to move half his force across, and the Adriatic was being guarded by Pompey's vast navy, under the command of Bibulus. With the path through Illyria being too mountainous for rapid movement, Caesar would have to find a way of crossing the sea. However, he did have one key advantage. The Roman calendar drifted over time and needed to be constantly updated by the Pontifex Maximus. Caesar had not performed this duty due to his constant campaigning, but he nonetheless knew the true date. It was late autumn. Bibulus was operating under the impression that it was winter, and had therefore kept his ships in port, confident that Caesar would not attempt a winter crossing. Ordering his men to leave slaves and baggage behind, Caesar set sail with 7 of his veteran legions. By the time Bibulus found out, Caesar and his men had already landed. Frustrated, Bibulus began a blockade, capturing and burning 30 of Caesar's ships as they returned to Brundisium, and preventing the rest from transporting the remainder of Caesar's army. Soon after his landing, he was able to take both Oricum and Apollonia. Caesar then sent Fabulius Rufus, a man who Caesar had captured twice, once at Corfinium and once at Ilerda, to treat with Pompey. With his force divided, Caesar was possibly having second thoughts and was seeking a truce, offering the same terms as before. Nonetheless, Caesar continued marching his force towards Dyrrhachium, an important supply center for the Pompeians. However, Caesar overestimated Fabulius's loyalties. The latter met Pompey and informed him of Caesar's location, army composition, and strategy. Now the Senate's commander planned to exploit this. He could not allow Dyrrhachium to fall into Caesar's hands, and pushed his men on a forced march. Caesar still had 70 miles and 3 rivers to cross before reaching the city, and Pompey could still beat him there. The march took its toll on his more inexperienced men, with some of his Epirot allies deserting due to this push and their fear of Caesar, but he was ultimately successful, reaching Dyrrhachium first. Labienus's public speech swearing to follow Pompey at whatever cost restored morale, and the army encamped outside Dyrrhachium, forcing Caesar to stop his advance, withdrawing to a defensible position on the southern bank of the river Apsus. Pompey knew that Caesar had legitimacy as consul, and could force his claim to be the rightful leader of Rome in peace.
I'm shaking my head because I'm thinking, Pompey, don't go. You just stay where you are. Because he's going to retreat to a position where he can get into a nice battle, and that's what you're going to be lured right into it. Damn fool.
So he had to defeat Caesar in the field. He moved his army south, encamping on the opposite side of a river to Caesar. Once again though, Pompey proved indecisive. Caesar had just around 30,000 men, compared to Pompey's 60,000. But Pompey did not trust his less experienced men to be able to defeat Caesar's veterans in a strong defensive position. A standoff continued for weeks. Caesar used this time to his advantage. Bibulus's navy had to constantly come ashore to resupply. Caesar dispatched small raiding parties to attack these men whenever they came ashore, forcing Bibulus to go further and further afield to get supplies. Bibulus knew he could not
Why wouldn't he just go north to where Pompey is?
abandon his position, but after weeks of harassment, his men were resorting to drinking the dew collected on leather awnings. In desperation, he tried to parley with Caesar, offering to send peace envoys on his behalf to Pompey if Caesar would stop. Caesar countered by saying that he would want to send his own envoys, and that if Bibulus wanted to resupply unmolested, he would have to allow Caesar's transports to pass. All these talks had done was reveal to Caesar how effective his strategy was. Soon after, old and now in increasingly poor health, Bibulus died, and that left the fleet leaderless. Antony had tried numerous times to break out of the blockade, but had been stopped every time. The Pompeians had kept him under significant pressure, even taking a small island in the harbour to try and trap Antony even further. However, Antony was a talented lieutenant and had retaken the island and had kept his men on alert for any opportunity. It came in January 48 BC. Antony only had enough ships to transport the 3 remaining veteran legions and 1 newly recruited one. His ships were almost intercepted by Pompey's fleet, and he was forced to change route, landing at Nymphaeum. Both Pompey and Caesar's armies had to rush to Antony's position, Pompey to cut him off from Caesar, and Caesar to unite his forces. Pompey had a head start and a shorter route, Caesar having to march a considerable distance in order to be able to ford the river, and Pompey got to Antony's position first. He ordered his men to not light any fires and lie in wait to try and ambush Antony as he moved to meet Caesar. However, some locals sympathetic to the Caesarian cause alerted Antony, and he set up camp, sending a messenger to inform Caesar of his location. When Pompey found Antony encamped and Caesar closing in, he realized he was in danger of being attacked on 2 sides and withdrew to a safer position near Asparagium. With his full army now joined, Caesar started to take more aggressive actions. Hearing that Scipio was now in Macedonia with his Syrian legions, Caesar sent 2 legions under Gnaeus Domitius Calvinus to cut him off. The Thessalians and Aetolians had sent envoys saying they'd support Caesar in return for garrisons, and so Caesar sent the rookie 27th Legion under Cassius Longinus to...
Sorry, I keep sneezing, so that's why I'm disappearing off camera. I just keep sneezing my brains out.
Thessaly, and G. Calvisius Sabinus with 5 cohorts to Aetolia to acquire more grain. Scipio did march his force towards Thessaly, threatening Longinus, but Calvinus and his legions were able to apply enough pressure to stop him uniting his force with Pompey. Meanwhile, one of Pompey's sons, Gnaeus, attacked Caesar's ships, destroying his whole navy in the area, leaving Caesar stranded in Greece and cut off from Italy. With his navy destroyed, Caesar knew he had to force an engagement with Pompey soon. He first attempted to do this at Asparagium, drawing up his army for battle, but Pompey, on the high ground, refused to commit. In order to force Pompey's hand, Caesar decided to march on Dyrrhachium. By threatening this crucial supply center, Pompey would be forced to respond. However, he did not want to reveal his plan to Pompey, and so planned on taking a circuitous route to hide his intentions. He struck camp early in the morning in April. The plan worked. Initially, Pompey thought Caesar was withdrawing due to lack of supplies, and it was only after his scouts reported Caesar's movements that Pompey realized what Caesar was planning. He then gave chase. Caesar marched through the night, only giving his men a brief break, and was able to reach Dyrrhachium first, setting up his camp on high ground outside the city. Pompey arrived soon after and encamped his force on high ground just south of Caesar's position. Pompey's army outnumbered Caesar's considerably. Having sent part of his force to occupy Scipio and part to southern Greece, Caesar had just 35,000 to 40,000 men and 3,000 cavalry. Pompey, on the other hand, had around 53,000 infantry and 7,000 cavalry. Though Caesar's men were more experienced, Pompey did have the crucial advantage of having a better supply line. Using his navy, he could ship supplies from Dyrrhachium to his camp, whereas Caesar would be forced to live off the land and requisition food from local tribes. Even this would be difficult, as Pompey's forces had already plundered the area in the previous months. Noting the particularly hilly topography of the area, Caesar decided to fall back on one of his most favoured tactics and fortify the hills around Pompey's position, encircling his enemy and cutting off their supplies. This would be a difficult task considering the size of the armies, but the natural topography simplified the task. When Pompey realized what Caesar was doing, he countered by constructing his own defenses. He ordered his men to fortify as many hills as possible, forcing Caesar to extend his own fortifications further and further, stretching his army. Frequent skirmishes broke out between the two forces, each harassing the other to try and slow their build. On one occasion, the 9th Legion, attempting to fortify a camp on a hilltop, came under intense masses of missile fire from the Pompeians on a nearby hill. Caesar, who was with the 9th at the time, ordered them to abandon the construction and retreat down the slope. He also commanded legionary engineers to place wattle screens to dig trenches behind to hinder the enemy from pursuing the legion.
I'm going to stop it there because there's about to be a battle. So you're going to have to stay tuned for the next episode of Kris Reacts to the Battle of... And my audio cut out again. Oh, darn. I don't remember how to pronounce it. I've been sneezing too much. All right, I'm going to end this here. But this video will be uploaded. I got like 3 gnats. They just keep flying around me. It's just annoying me. Oh, I'm going to murder you. I hope you're dead. I caught him. I killed him. I'm the gnat whisperer. Okay. Oh, you can't see it. His little guts. Ugh, that wasn't me. That was you. You pig. I'm out of here.